The eye is the first circle. The horizon which it forms is the second. And throughout nature, this primary figure is repeated without end. Wow.
Mm.
Okay, let's unpack that. That's Emerson right at the start.
It really pulls you in, doesn't it?
It does. Welcome everyone to the deep dive. Today we're getting into Ralph Waldo Emerson's essay Circles. And it's way more than just circles, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's this whole exploration of, well, reality, how we see it, how it's always
shifting, changing.
He puts it so well early on. Our life is an apprenticeship to the truth, that around every circle another can be drawn.
Right. I love that line.
It's powerful, this idea that, what we understand now, it's temporary. There's always more.
Always a bigger circle waiting. It implies everything's kind of transient, but also there's this limitless potential, right?
Exactly. Potential for growth, for new understanding.
Okay, so if there's deep dive, what we really wanted to focus on is how these ideas in circles, this constant expansion, letting go, how they connect or maybe differ from some other big spiritual and philosophical streams of thought. The ones people are often curious about, like Eastern traditions, Buddhism maybe, and Gnosticism, apophatic thought, even Jungian psychology.
Some deep wells there.
Right. So our mission, if you like, is to explore those links, not just surface similarities, but really get into the nuances.
Sounds good. Where should we start? Maybe with Eastern mysticism.
Yeah, let's do that. Because that central idea, the ever-expanding circle, it feels like there's an immediate connection there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
With ideas of transcendence, evolving consciousness.
Definitely. When Emerson talks about drawing, another circle around the first, it does make you think of Buddhist ideas about expanding awareness.
It does, like peeling back layers of illusion, ignorance, something like that.
Yeah, that kind of process.
But here's a question, maybe. Is Emerson suggesting we're moving towards something specific with these bigger circles, or is it more about the expansion itself?
Ah, that's a really good point. Because while they both stress development, some Buddhist thought, especially around emptiness, sunyata, it suggests ultimate reality isn't exactly a destination you reach.
Okay.
It's more about understanding the lack of inherent fixed essence in everything. So Emerson sees these expanding circles maybe implying progress, but that might differ a bit from the Buddhist view of interconnectedness, where all circles, big or small, are ultimately empty in nature.
Interesting distinction.
But that said, his idea of impermanence things being fleeting, that aligns really strongly with Anicca in Buddhism. The idea that everything conditioned changes.
Okay, so the process of change is key in both, even if the ultimate goal might be framed differently.
I think so, yeah.
You also mentioned the Hindu concept of Maya. How does that fit with the circles?
Well, think of Maya as this cosmic illusion, the veil over reality. Emerson's circles could be seen as like piercing that veil.
Gradually.
Yeah, gradually. Each new insight, each bigger perspective is like drawing a new circle that gets you a bit closer to seeing things as they are, shedding those illusions.
Okay.
And again, that quote, "There is no end in nature, but every end is a beginning," that really echoes the cyclical view of time and consciousness in Hindu thought. It's continuous evolution, not some final stop.
Right, so any truth we land on is just a new starting line, a temporary viewpoint on a bigger journey. It's less about arriving somewhere static.
Exactly. More dynamic, always unfolding.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. What about Gnosticism? That emphasis on inner personal knowledge. Where are the echoes there in circles?
Oh, definitely. Emerson's focus on personal revelation, trusting your inner experience, that really resonates with a lot of Gnostic ideas.
Right. Gnostics prioritized that direct knowing, didn't they? Over, say, dogma or external rules.
They absolutely did. Think about Emerson's line, "The way of life is wonderful. It is by abandonment."
Okay, abandonment. That sounds pretty drastic. Abandoning what? How does that connect?
Well, from a Gnostic perspective, you could see abandonment as letting go of the material world's illusions, maybe. Conventional thinking, even established religious ideas that feel limiting. It's about trusting that inner spark, that sort of divine bit inside you to guide you. Emerson's push for individual intuition, the divinity within, that feels very aligned with Gnostic gnosis, that personal knowing being the key.
So a very inward-looking path, trusting yourself. And the Gnostics also had this idea that our normal perception is flawed, veiled, like we're missing the bigger picture.
Yes, very much so.
Does that connect to Emerson's circles.
Absolutely. The whole premise of circles, that our current view is always limited, always needing to expand, that maps almost directly onto the Gnostic idea that we're mostly ignorant of our true selves and reality, kind of stuck in illusion.
So the circles represent waking up.
Yeah, you could see it that way. Breaking free from the old limits, constantly pushing the boundaries of your understanding to get closer to truth.
Interesting. So both are saying there's more than meets the eye, and the path is inward, not outward through doctrines necessarily.
Right, which leads kind of naturally into this idea of questioning established beliefs and the limits of our language, which connects to apophatic theology.
Okay, the via negativa. Explain that a bit first.
Sure. Apophatic theology is basically this approach to the divine or ultimate reality that says you can't really define it by what it is. Our words, our concepts, they just fall short. So you define it by what it's not.
Defining by negation.
Exactly. And you see hints of this, intriguingly, in Emerson.
But Emerson uses language so richly. How does he fit with a tradition about what can't be said?
It seems like a paradox, right? But think about this quote. People wish to be settled. Only as far as they are unsettled is there any hope for them.
Ah, okay. Being unsettled.
Yes. That's key, I think. Apophatic thought kind of thrives on recognizing that clinging to fixed ideas about God or reality actually limits you. By staying unsettled, by admitting your current understanding isn't the whole picture, you leave room for something more.
So it's like Emerson sees certainty as a trap, a barrier to growth.
Precisely. Complacency is the enemy of expansion.
Yeah.
And when he says, no facts are to me sacred, none are profane, I simply experiment, an endless seeker, that feels very apophatic in spirit.
Right. He's not locking anything down as the final word.
Exactly. He's refusing to make any truth claim untouchable. It embodies that commitment to just keep asking, keep exploring, recognizing that the ultimate might always be just beyond our grasp. It's about the seeking itself.
Okay, this theme of the inner life connecting to something bigger, it seems to run through all of these, and it really brings us to Carl Jung, doesn't it? That philosophical kinship.
Yes, that's a really fascinating link. Their methods were different, obviously, Emerson with essays, Jung with psychology, but they shared this deep belief in the inner world as the path to universal truths.
And the core idea there is that collective level of consciousness. Jung's collective unconscious, Emerson's oversoul. How similar are those?
They're strikingly similar in intuition. Jung saw the collective unconscious as this shared reservoir of human experiences, instincts, archetypes, inherited, universal.
Right.
Emerson's one mind, or oversoul, is also about this fundamental unity, a universal spirit connecting all individual minds. He literally says, there is one mind common to all individual men.
Wow.
So the core idea in both is that our thoughts, our deep feelings, they're not just ours. They're tapped into something bigger, something shared.
That's a huge idea, that our deepest insights might actually be tapping into this universal consciousness.
So what about Jung's archetypes, these universal patterns? How do they fit with Emerson seeing individuals as inlets to the oversoul? Well, Emerson saw us as unique expressions, right? Like channels or inlets for this universal spirit. Jung's archetypes, the hero, the shadow, whatever, are like the fundamental patterns within that collective unconscious.
Okay.
So you could say, as the oversoul flows through us, our individual lives become unique expressions of these underlying archetypal patterns. Jung maps the psychological structures. Emerson gives a more, perhaps, metaphysical source for why those patterns exist and are shared.
So in a world that's often obsessed with being totally original, totally individual, both Jung and Emerson are kind of pointing back to something deeper, suggesting true originality might come from tuning into these shared universal patterns.
Exactly. Jung said ideas grow in us like a plant, right? Suggesting they emerge from this deeper source. And Emerson says when you speak from that deep conviction, it resonates as the universal sense.
Yeah.
It's less about inventing something brand new out of thin air and more about accessing these fundamental human truths.
That feels incredibly relevant now. With social media, the pressure to be unique, both seem to be calling for this. Inward turn. To find a more authentic source of wisdom inside, instead of just looking outside for validation or trends.
Yes, absolutely. In all the noise of modern life, it's a reminder that real clarity, creativity, maybe even meaning, it comes from those deeper currents within us and our connection to that bigger picture.
Which brings us right back perfectly to Emerson's main image. Around every circle, another can be drawn. How does that specific idea hit us today in the 21st century?
Oh, in so many ways. I mean, just think about information overload.
Yeah.
Emerson's idea encourages intellectual humility, doesn't it? Knowing our current understanding is just one circle helps keep us open. It stops us from getting totally locked into our own viewpoint.
That's huge. And for personal growth, too.
Yeah.
It pushes back against the quick fix mentality. He's talking about continuous transcendence, constantly outgrowing ourselves.
Right. And he even says, the new statement is always hated by the old,
Ah!
which speaks volumes about the resistance we feel inside and out when we try to break old patterns. Growth isn't always easy or comfortable.
No, definitely not. It often means challenging things.
Nature abhors the old, that it's always renewing. That fits so well with how we understand ecosystems now. They're dynamic, always changing. We need flexible approaches.
And technology. His idea of new circles constantly reshaping the old ones feels like he saw the future. Every big invention, printing press, internet, AI, it creates a whole new circle of influence.
It really does. It redefines everything. It's not just better tools, it's a whole new reality being drawn around the old one.
Yeah.
And finally, spiritually, in a world with so many paths, or maybe no clear path for some, Emerson offers this idea of perpetual exploration, drawing your own new circles of understanding the sacred without being confined by one single system.
So Circles isn't just some dusty 19th century essay. It's actually, maybe surprisingly, a really useful framework for dealing with now, for handling complexity, for personal growth, for finding meaning.
I really think so. It reminds us that reality and our own potential is fluid, dynamic, always capable of expansion.
Okay, so let's try and pull these threads together. We've seen how Emerson's expanding circles connect with Eastern ideas of transcendence and cycles.
And Gnosticism's focus on inner knowing.
Right, and apophatic theology's embrace of the unknown, the limits of our definitions.
And definitely with Jung's collective unconscious and the whole journey of becoming yourself, individuation.
It holds up, doesn't it, as this really vital way to think about navigating change, dealing with all the information flying at us, and just seeking something deeper.
Absolutely. It's a call to look beyond the immediate, the fixed, and embrace the flow.
A reminder that life isn't about finding the answer and sticking to it. It's about the journey, the process of drawing those new circles.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, so on that note, here's something to chew on. Think about this. How am I leaning into that discomfort, that feeling of being unsettled in what you know? How might that actually open you up to new ideas, new connections, maybe a deeper understanding of yourself and everything else? What circle, what belief or understanding might you be holding on to right now that's actually ready for a new one to be drawn around it? Something to think about as you continue your own deep dive this week.